The tattered wallet lay half buried in the sand when Jonathan Jonas Everett, a billionaire real estate mogul, happened upon it during a quiet morning stroll along the shore. His hand trembled as he picked it up, brushing off the grains clinging to the faded leather. He didn't know what compelled him to open it, but when he did, his breath caught in his throat. There, tucked inside one of the pockets, was a photograph, old, worn, but unmistakably her. Marianne. Her once vibrant face now looked gaunt and weary, her features hollowed by time and grief. But what froze Jonas in place wasn't just her image. No, it was the 3 children seated beside her, triplets, and all of them looked just like him. He stumbled backward, as if someone had punched him in the gut. This can't be true. I left her childless, whispered the voice of guilt that had been haunting him for years. Jonas collapsed into the sand, reeling. He had no idea that the very kids who sold him mussels that morning were the children in that photo. Earlier that same day, in a towering glass office overlooking Manhattan, Celeste Whitmore leaned across her father's executive desk. Her voice was velvet smooth, but there was iron beneath it. "You know, Jonas, someone like you could easily become the next vice president of the company." Jonas stood straight, shoulders tense beneath the weight of her words. Though the office was air-conditioned, sweat beaded at the nape of his neck. Celeste's father, founder and CEO of Whitmore Builders, had long admired Jonas's work. Jonas had climbed the ladder from a humble project engineer to senior project manager through sheer grit and sleepless nights. Yet here he stood, unsure, as Celeste approached him with measured steps. "There's just one condition," she added, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "A condition?" Jonas asked, already dreading her reply. Celeste's eyes glinted as she stopped inches from him. "Leave your wife. Leave Marianne." Jonas felt like a grenade had gone off in his ears. "What did you just say?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Leave her," Celeste repeated calmly. "You're miserable, Jonas. You've said it yourself in meetings, how disconnected you've become. Marianne hasn't been the same since she became a housewife. The silence, the depression. She's no longer the woman you married." "You don't understand," he said, through clenched teeth. "I understand better than she does," Celeste cut in. "And let's be honest, you're destined for more than some small, unhappy life. I can help you get there, but not while you're tied to a woman with no ambition." Jonas said nothing. Inside him raged a war, conscience versus ambition. He and Marianne had been fighting more often. Their love had felt like it died the day their son passed. In many ways, it had. "If you accept my offer," Celeste said with a charming smile, "you'll get 3 new building projects tomorrow. I'll talk to the board about promoting you." "And if I don't?" "You'll be stuck as a project manager until you burn out." Jonas turned to the window. The city pulsed beneath him. Endless steel, concrete, and dreams. He'd walked these sites as a green engineer once, proud, hopeful. Now, he felt empty. He thought of Marianne's voice that night she broke down. "Am I so hard to love even if I don't earn money?" she'd asked him. "Choose me, Jonas," Celeste whispered. Her hand now rested lightly on his arm. "And you'll finally have the success you deserve." "Give me a few days," he answered quietly. That night, Jonas returned to their small Brooklyn apartment. It was silent except for the whir of a cheap electric fan and a neighbor's dog barking outside. Marianne stood at the sink washing dishes, her figure thinner, her shoulders sagging. "Hi," he greeted. "Hi," she answered flatly. No hug, no kiss. "What's for dinner?" "String bean adobo," she replied. "We ran out of meat. The budget's tight." Jonas sat at the table and stared at their old wedding photo, hanging by a crooked nail on the wall. Once it had been a symbol of hope. Now it felt like a chain. "How are you?" he asked. Still here, she replied, eyes not meeting his. Still waiting for you to come home early, but I've stopped hoping. Jonas winced, not from the words, but because they were true. For years he'd emotionally shut her out. He blamed her for their son's death, a pain they both carried, but in different ways. He wanted to say something now, to reach out. Marianne, he began. What? Her eyes met his, strong, yet glistening with unfallen tears. I feel lost, he whispered, then stood and went upstairs without finishing the conversation. She stayed behind, silently crying as soapsuds mixed with her tears. 3 days passed. Jonas never mentioned Celeste's offer again, but he became even more distant, coming home late, barely speaking. Until one morning, Marianne found a letter on the dining table. I'm sorry. I can't pretend anymore. There's no more love left. I can't live in this world we've built. Goodbye. It was accompanied by 3 months' rent and his wedding ring. Meanwhile, Celeste smiled as she read his message. I've made my choice. This better be worth it. Oh, it will be, she whispered, sipping expensive wine. She had won. Back in the dim bedroom of their apartment, Marianne clutched a faded baby blanket. It had belonged to their son, Michael. Once the apartment had been filled with laughter. Now it was a tomb. Every day she mourned, not just for Michael, but for the love she and Jonas had lost. On the day of their son's burial, Jonas had said the most devastating words. If you hadn't taken your eyes off him, our son might still be alive. That hurt more than the burial itself. It had been a year since the tragedy. That day was supposed to be a simple family outing to the river. Everyone was happy. While Marianne prepared lunch, little Michael played near the water with his cousins. She had always been hesitant to let him out of her sight, even for a second, but Jonas's sisters insisted she take a break. Marianne, we've got this. Relax for once, one of them had said. She relented. That was the day Michael never came back. According to the police, he had drowned, pulled by the current. But something about that explanation never sat right with her. One child claimed there was a fishing net underwater, deliberately placed to obstruct the river's flow. No one listened. Everyone blamed her. Since that day, life had become unbearable. Jonas turned into a stranger. He stopped looking at her, never embraced her at night. He'd come home late, show no concern, and even when she tried to talk, they barely saw each other. One day, while doing Jonas's laundry, she found lipstick smudged on the collar of his shirt. It nearly knocked the wind out of her. He hadn't always been like this. They were childhood sweethearts, next-door neighbors in a sleepy southern town. Jonas used to protect her from bullies. Marianne often brought him lunch during school. They fought for their love, even when her father disapproved of Jonas's humble background. He was a carpenter's son. They married after college. The ceremony was simple but full of love. They moved to New York, rented a tiny unit, and started from scratch. Jonas worked hard as an engineer. Marianne taught kindergarten, but after giving birth to Michael, she left her job to raise him. I want to be here for his first step, his first word, his first laugh, she said once. Jonas supported her at first, but as years passed, their paths diverged. He climbed the corporate ladder while she was left at home, washing clothes, cooking meals, raising Michael. Then Michael died and their world unraveled. One night, she tried talking again. Jonas, when was the last time we even had dinner together? I'm tired, Marianne. Don't start this now, he said, eyes glued to his phone. You don't even talk to me anymore. It's like we're not even married. Don't you feel that? Tears welled in her eyes. Jonas stood up and turned away. Maybe it's because we don't have a child anymore. Maybe it's because all you do is grieve, he muttered. Oh my God, Jonas, Do you think you're the only one hurting? I wake up every day thinking it's all my fault. You don't know how many times I wished I would disappear, thinking maybe you'd be better off without me." Jonas said nothing. He walked out the door, leaving her collapsed on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. In the following weeks, he stopped coming home altogether. One morning she found the letter. "I'm sorry, I can't pretend anymore." Her world collapsed, but amid the pain, Marianne carried a secret she never told Jonas, something she had kept since the first month she missed her period. She was pregnant, and Jonas was gone. There was no joy in the news, no strength to celebrate, but one thing was certain: she would not give up. Not again. On the last night she cried over Jonas's departure. She whispered to herself, "I will carry this alone, even if it hurts, even if I have to protect our children's memory by myself." That river, the one that swallowed Michael, kept flowing in her memories. It was the same place where her son disappeared, and even though she'd cleansed her conscience and tried to forgive herself, something still felt wrong. For months, she obsessed over the details. The net underwater. The old fisherman who mentioned someone had requested the area be cleared. Her question never changed. Why was there a net in a part of the river where no one fished? And if it truly was an accident, why did Jonas hold such deep, consuming anger, almost as if he knew exactly how to break her? A week before the tragedy, Celeste sat in a black van wearing sunglasses, her long hair framing her cold, expressionless face. A man in the driver's seat looked nervous. "Are you sure this'll work?" he asked. "It's just a net," Celeste replied. "Place it beneath the surface, not too visible, but enough to catch anyone who gets too close." "This is dangerous, ma'am. Someone might get hurt, might even die." "That's what I want. Just make sure it can't be traced to me. Here's the money. Do your job." The man nodded, torn, but swayed by the thick envelope in his hand. Celeste was consumed by rage. She had loved Jonas in secret for years. Ever since her internship, he had captivated her. Brilliant, kind, attractive. But there was always Marianne. Her father had dismissed Marianne as a meek small-town girl with no ambition. For Celeste, the resentment ran deeper. It wasn't just jealousy, it was obsession. Every time she saw Jonas and Marianne at company events, holding hands, sharing smiles, she seethed. "That should be me," she told herself, again and again. So when she learned of their upcoming river outing, she saw her chance. She didn't plan to kill anyone, not exactly. But if Michael were gone and Marianne blamed, perhaps Jonas would walk away from her on his own. And that's exactly what happened. After the tragedy, Celeste eased her way into Jonas's life, first as a friend, a listening ear, a comfort. His broken heart was her opening. "You're the only one I have left," Jonas once said, drunk and crying. He'd lost his son, and in his mind, it was all Marianne's fault. Celeste whispered, "You're not alone." At present, Jonas still had no idea of the full truth. He believed what he wanted to believe, and Celeste used that to control him. "You were right to leave her," she always said. And to Jonas, that became reason enough. He left the woman he once swore to love in sickness and in health. Yet Marianne never spoke a word of accusation. Who would believe her? She had no job, no power, no wealth. Celeste, on the other hand, was beautiful, educated, and heir to the company. So Marianne stayed quiet. Instead, she poured all her strength into raising the children, born 9 months later. 3 tiny babies she loved at first sight. There were no ultrasounds, no medical help, only her and the will to survive. She named them Mira, Michael Jr., and Maya. They became her world, her reason to breathe again. As the months passed, everything was painful and difficult. With barely enough money for milk or diapers, Marianne did everything she could to raise the triplets, Mira, Michael Jr., and Maya. Every time they cried, she cried too. But with each of their smiles, she felt alive again. Still, life didn't get any easier. Depression crept back. At night, while the children slept, memories of Jonas would surface. His eyes, once filled with dreams, were now replaced by cold silence in her mind. Was it wrong to love too much? She once asked herself as she wiped sweat from her child's forehead. On the other hand, Jonas was busy building his empire. With Celeste's help, the company soared. She gave him a seat on the board, bought him a new car, a luxury condo. He had everything money could buy, except peace of mind. During business meetings, in every glossy magazine article praising his success, there remained an emptiness he couldn't explain. Each night, without the comfort of a hand resting on his chest, his thoughts drifted to Marianne, and especially to Michael. Sometimes he'd close his eyes and whisper, "I'm sorry." But Celeste's voice would always drown out the guilt. "Forget the past. Focus on now," she insisted. "You can coat a body in gold, paint the house with luxury, but no amount of wealth can buy peace for a fractured soul." Whenever Jonas saw a mother walking with her child, he turned to look. When kids played at the park, something tugged at his chest. He didn't understand why. Every dinner with Celeste only made him feel more disconnected. One afternoon, while driving through a narrow alley, he spotted a woman with 3 children. They were small, thin, but full of energy. He froze. Their gait, the way the woman walked, it all felt oddly familiar. "Jonas, you're late for your meeting." Celeste's voice snapped from the back seat. Startled, he pressed the gas. He never saw the woman's face. He didn't know that it had been Marianne. Back in a makeshift shack near the coast, Marianne struggled to survive with her children. She sold homemade rice cakes in the morning. When they had nothing, they relied on what the kids earned from selling clams and mussels. There was no electricity, no steady food, but every night as she watched her children huddle together on a thin mat, she whispered, "Lord, even if no one returns to us, just don't forsake me, for my children." The love between her and Jonas had long vanished. The vows they once shared had been devoured by ambition, anger, and lies. But what Jonas didn't know was that his leaving wasn't the end. In the silence of hardship, in the sting of poverty, 3 hearts continued to beat. Hearts born from a love that had once been real. Hearts that were part of his own. Jonas rose from the plush mattress of his suite, groggy. It was early, but the tropical sun already beat down hard. He was on a business trip, inspecting a new resort development project for his company. Through the sliding glass door, he could see the crystal blue ocean and white sand, like something from a postcard. Once, this had been a dream. Now it was just work. He had everything: his own firm, a fleet of cars, a penthouse, private beach properties, and respect in the construction and real estate world. And yet, when he looked in the mirror each morning, he always asked the same question: why do I still feel incomplete? As he strolled along the shoreline, something unusual caught his eye at the edge of the sand. A worn-out wallet, dirty, sun-bleached, soaked too many times. He bent down and picked it up. Probably a worker dropped it, he thought. He wasn't planning to meddle, but something about it drew him in. Opening it slowly, he found old receipts, a local market ID, a wrinkled list of grocery prices, rice 45 cents, milk 80 cents, sugar. One flap of the wallet had a hidden pocket. Jonas opened it carefully, and there it was, a photograph. He froze. Even faded and cracked, it was unmistakable. Marianne, sitting on a mat, thin and pale, the weight of the world in her eyes. But what took his breath away were the 3 children beside her. Same age, same features, triplets, and they looked exactly like him. He couldn't breathe. "Impossible," he whispered. We had no children when I left her." His hands went cold. His body shook. He sank onto the sand, overwhelmed. He studied the photo again. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe the kids weren't his. But deep inside, he knew. No father forgets the face of his own blood. And if that woman was really Marianne, why did she have 3 children? Triplets? Jonas rubbed his temples. The beautiful resort, the turquoise water, none of it brought peace. Only confusion and turmoil. He looked back at the wallet. No name, no ID, no address, no clue to Marianne's location. But one thing was clear. This wasn't an accident. The wallet felt like fate itself had tossed it in his path. And now, he was being forced to confront the past he had buried beneath ambition. "Mr. Everett, sir, the transport is ready for the site visit," an engineer called from behind. "You go ahead. I need to take care of something," Jonas replied. Once the staff left, he stood, the wallet still in his hand. He scanned the area, the fishermen hauling nets, kids playing in the sand, vendors calling out about fresh shellfish. He didn't know how he'd find Marianne, but on this small island, he believed, no secret stayed buried for long. "I'm not leaving until I find the truth," Jonas whispered to himself. "If those kids really are mine, I owe them 10 years. For the first time in ages, Jonas's heart beat with something real, not for business, not for wealth, but for the possibility that somewhere out there, children had spent their whole lives calling for a father in their dreams. And if it was true, was he ready to face it? "I'm not leaving until I find them," Jonas instructed the resort manager the next day. He hadn't slept all night. His mind and heart were wide awake, his thoughts circling the photograph of Marianne and the 3 children. He opened the photo again and again, memorizing every smile, every line in their faces, and the sorrow in Marianne's eyes. "Sir, should we report this to the authorities? Maybe someone lost that wallet," the manager asked carefully. "Number, I'll take care of it," Jonas replied firmly. "Shut the island gates, no one in or out. Ask every staff member, even volunteers and vendors, if they've seen a woman with 3 kids. 3 kids? Yes, same age, around 8. The mother's name is Marianne." The search spread across the island. Fishermen were questioned, vendors at the local market, children at school. But with the number of people around, it was hard to trace anyone. Some said they knew of a sickly woman with 3 kids who sold clams and mussels by the shore. "She's a local?" Jonas asked one vendor. "Seems like she moved here just a year ago. Quiet, keeps to herself. But her kids, they work hard." Jonas's heart pounded. "Do you know where they live?" "No exact address, but Alicia, the snack seller, mentioned seeing kids who stay near the vacant lot by the riverbank, at the far end of the village." While his staff continued asking around, Jonas stayed alert. He couldn't rest. The feeling in his chest wasn't business anxiety. It was fear, hope, uncertainty, and a single thought that wouldn't leave him. What if it's true? What if they really are my children? He didn't leave the island for days. He waited, asked questions, made rounds. Then one morning, while sipping coffee on the veranda of his villa, a familiar sound echoed from the beach. "Fresh clams and mussels, straight from the ocean." Jonas turned toward the voice. He stood and stepped closer to the edge of the veranda. From above, he saw 3 children selling by the shore. They each carried a woven basket. Their clothes were worn, simple t-shirts and shorts, sun-kissed skin, but their eyes sparkled. 1 boy, 2 girls, around the same age. Their eyes were round, their noses sharp, and their smiles. Jonas couldn't move. It was them, the triplets from the photograph. He felt frozen. His legs wouldn't respond. He motioned to one of his staff. "Bring those 3 kids here, gently. Don't scare them. Just tell them I want to speak with them." The staff nodded and approached the children. Jonas watched from above as they hesitated at first, but finally agreed when offered food and ice cream. Inside the resort's restaurant, Jonas had the entire place cleared. The curtains were drawn. The children sat at a round table as staff placed food before them. Fried chicken, spaghetti, soda. It felt like Christmas morning to them. "Is this really free?" one of them asked. "Yes, all of it," a staff member confirmed. Once they had eaten, Jonas approached them slowly, as if afraid of scaring them away. "Hello," he said. The three looked up at him, all at once. It felt like fate had staged the moment. "You're so handsome, sir," one of the girls said. "You look familiar." Jonas smiled, though his chest felt tight. "What are your names?" he asked, almost in a whisper. "I'm Michael," said the boy. "And my sisters are Mira and Maya." Jonas couldn't stop the tears. He looked up at the ceiling, bit his lip and breathed deeply. "Michael," he whispered, placing a hand over his heart. The name of the child they lost. But he couldn't say everything, not yet. He had no confirmation, no talk with Marianne. One thing was clear, he wouldn't let this moment pass. He couldn't lose them again. "Fresh clams and mussels, right from the sea." Under the blazing sun, the three children walked the beach again, carrying their baskets, sweat on their brows, lips dry, but smiles on their faces. This was their normal. Michael waved at tourists, shouting cheerfully. Mira stayed alert, watching for anyone who looked like they might buy. Maya stood quietly, holding a hand fan made of folded paper. At 8 years old, they didn't know the word play. All they knew was work. "Don't stay out late," warned Miss Bev, the kind widow who lived next door. "Your mom's still not well. Get home quickly." "Yes, ma'am," they answered in unison, then ran back toward the resort, where there were always more guests. That day, a resort staff member approached them. "Are you Michael?" he asked, wearing a white polo. "Yes," Michael replied, wary. "A guest wants to talk to you. He has food waiting for you, all free." The siblings exchanged glances. "Free?" Mira asked. "Yes, and he said he'll buy all your clams and mussels too." Inside the restaurant, the children couldn't believe the feast laid out before them. Fried chicken, spaghetti, noodles, ice cream, and juice. It felt like a festival, like heaven. "Are you sure we don't have to pay?" Michael asked. "No," the staff smiled. "It's all from our guest. He said to give you everything and let you eat until you're full." Jonas watched from the side door, hidden as the children ate. Every bite, every laugh, it all pierced his conscience. Even without confirmation, he felt it in his soul. They were his, especially Michael. The boy looked exactly like him. The eyes, the stance, the way he chewed his thumb when nervous. It was all him, years ago. Finally, Jonas found the courage to approach. "Hi," he greeted warmly. The children looked up. They didn't speak right away. What they noticed first was how handsome he looked, like someone from a movie. "Sir, were you the one who bought our clams?" Mira asked. "Yes, that was me," Jonas replied. "You're so brave," he said. "Not many kids your age can sell things and talk to grown-ups." "Oh, we're used to it," Michael answered. "Our mom's sick, so we help with the expenses." "What's wrong with your mom?" Jonas asked, holding back tears. "It's her heart," Michael said. "Miss Bev said she can't work much anymore, so we take care of the selling." "What's your mommy's name?" Jonas already knew, but he needed to hear it. "Marianne," they said in unison. Jonas nearly collapsed from the weight in his chest. It was like a thorn had been pulled from his soul, only to be replaced by crushing guilt. Marianne, the woman he left, the woman he wept for in silence, the woman he had no idea was alive, much less raising their children. And now those children were here, helping their sick mother by working under the sun. No toys, no school, just baskets instead of books. Would you like to stop by the clinic here at the resort for a quick checkup? It's free. We've got vitamins and milk too, Jonas offered, forcing a smile. Okay, Maya said quietly. But sir, we need to be home before dark, Mira added. Mum might worry. No problem, Jonas assured them. I'll send a car to take you home after the clinic. As they walked together toward the resort's small clinic, Jonas leaned toward his assistant. Find out where those kids live. Follow them later. I want to see Marianne. At last he had found the missing piece of his heart, but instead of joy, he felt slapped by the truth. He had chosen to forget the past, and the children who had sacrificed their childhood for their ailing mother were his, children born from a love he had destroyed in pursuit of ambition. It was late at night when the siblings returned to their small shack near the edge of the island. Maya, Mira, and Michael were all smiles, their baskets now filled with milk and food from the resort. But it wasn't just the food that made them happy. It was the kindness shown to them by a man who felt oddly familiar. Sir Jonas is really nice, Michael said, carrying the heaviest basket. He looked like a movie star, Mira giggled, and he smelled so good. He looked like the guy in your old drawing, Michael, Maya whispered, the one you always say is your dad from your dreams. Michael stopped walking. I don't even know why, but he did feel familiar. When they got home, the shack was dark and quiet. Their mother, Marianne, was lying on a mat, pale and barely able to sit up. The children rushed to her side. Mom, we're home, Mira shouted, wiping sweat from her mother's brow. Wake up, Mom, Michael whispered, tapping her hand. Look, we brought milk, and vitamins too. Everything was free. Marianne slowly opened her eyes. Her voice was weak. Are you all okay? Yes, Maya answered, then kissed her on the forehead. A kind man bought all our clams. Then he fed us at the resort. There was so much food, Mom. It was like a party. Marianne didn't speak, but her eyes quietly asked the question. Who was that man? What does he want from my children? Back at the resort, Jonas sat restlessly, still holding the wallet and photo. The faces of Marianne and the triplets burned in his mind. He hadn't slept. He knew he couldn't wait any longer. The next morning, he was up early and called for his driver. Take me to the shack near the riverbank. Follow the kids from yesterday. I need to see their mother. After nearly an hour driving through narrow roads and overgrown paths, the car stopped in front of a small yard. The roof was patched together with tin sheets, the walls built from bamboo and salvaged wood. From inside, Jonas heard a woman's cough, weak and painful. Is this where Marianne lives? He asked the child who greeted him. It was Mira. Yes, sir. Sorry it's messy, she said politely. Jonas didn't answer. He saw her immediately, Marianne lying there, pale and thin, a shadow of the woman he once loved. Marianne, he whispered. She turned slowly. Her eyes widened. Disbelief filled her face. She looked at her children, then back at Jonas, over and over. Is that... Jonas? She sat up, trembling. Jonas dropped to his knees beside her. My God, what happened to you? What are you doing here? Marianne asked, her voice faint but sharp. What do you want? Jonas stepped back, weighed down by the heaviness of the moment. I don't know, he said honestly, but I found your wallet, the picture. Then I saw them, Michael, Mira, Maya. Tears streamed down Marianne's face, not from joy, but from deep, aching resentment. Why only now? She asked, voice shaking. When you left me, I was pregnant. I thought you'd come back. I thought you still had the right to know, but you never even looked back. No letters, no money, no message. Jonas bowed his head. He couldn't meet her eyes. I'm sorry, he murmured. I don't need your apology, Jonas, Marianne said. I need an answer. Why did you leave us? Silence. Only the chirping of birds outside filled the air. I don't know how to explain it, Jonas finally said. When Michael died, my world collapsed. I blamed you. I convinced myself it was your fault. But the truth is, I was a coward. I hid behind my anger, my job, my ambition, and a woman who made me believe I could have a better future if I left you. There it is, Marianne said, trying to hold back her tears. You left when I needed you most, when our family needed strength. You were the first to let go. Jonas was silent again. He knew explanations wouldn't undo what he'd done. But maybe, just maybe, he still had time to make things right. Marianne, let me take you to the city. I'll get you checked by the best doctors. I won't let you die. I won't let our kids lose their mother. I don't need your pity, she said. This isn't pity, Jonas replied. It's what I owe you, to them, to myself. Soon, a private nurse and doctor arrived from the resort. After examining Marianne, they recommended immediate surgery. Her heart needed urgent attention. There was no choice. As Marianne was carried to the car, she gripped Michael's hand tightly. No matter what happens, never forget what we fought for, she whispered. We won't, Mum, Michael answered. Behind them, Jonas followed silently. But in his heart, a promise screamed, I will never leave again. It was a 3-hour flight from the island to New York City aboard Jonas's private helicopter. During the ride, he held Marianne's hand tightly. Across from them, the triplets sat in silence, eyes fixed on their mother, nervous and afraid. The noise of the propellers was loud, but the pounding of Jonas's heart was louder. He couldn't believe Marianne was right there beside him, so fragile, barely conscious, her lips darkened at the edges. She needed immediate surgery. Please, Marianne, Jonas whispered, wiping the sweat from her brow. Hold on, it's not too late. She didn't reply, but she squeezed Miko's hand just a little tighter, her eyes closed in pain. At the hospital, the staff moved quickly. A nurse handed Jonas a clipboard. Relationship to the patient? Spouse, Jonas replied immediately. The nurse looked at him with uncertainty. She's not listed in our system as a legal dependent. No explanation needed. I'll pay for everything. Just prioritize her, he said with urgency. No one argued. Marianne was rushed into pre-op tests and hooked to support machines. Outside the operating room, Jonas waited with the triplets, who were visibly scared. Mom, Maya cried softly through tears. The doctors won't let anything happen to her. Jonas tried to comfort them, kneeling in front of them. I promise. Daddy promises. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Mira freeze. Sweetheart, are you okay? He asked. You said Daddy, Mira replied softly, unsure if she heard it right. Jonas didn't answer immediately. Hours passed. While waiting, the head nurse returned with Marianne's medical folder. Sir, we need to confirm the records for the children, emergency contacts, medical updates. Do you want your name included on their birth certificates? Something jabbed at Jonas's heart. He felt like he'd been slapped by years of truth. I want to know. Am I their father? He asked, quiet but steady. The nurses exchanged glances. Sir, based on the records, Michael Jr., Mira, and Maya were born at the State Health Center 8 years ago. There's no father listed, only a document signed by Marianne declaring herself for sole guardian. Can we verify it? A DNA test is possible. I'll do anything, Jonas said. Any test, just tell me what's needed. Sir, it may not be necessary. The initial genetic markers from their blood work, your compatibility with the children is very high, especially with Michael Jr. Jonas's world spun. It was heavy and light all at once. He was their father. This wasn't a hunch. It wasn't guilt. It was fact. He stood up and walked to the corridor window, looked at his reflection, and closed his eyes. "I've been gone for 8 years," he whispered, "and only now am I here, as a father." He returned to the children. Michael, Mira, Maya. They all turned toward him, quiet, uncertain, but in each of their eyes was a glimmer of recognition, an emotion they didn't yet have words for. "I need to tell you something," Jonas said. "I know you've been through a lot. I know you don't really know me, but I'm your father." Silence. No one moved. Then Michael, the bravest among them, asked, "Why only now?" Jonas paused. He didn't know how to answer, but he didn't run. "Because I was a coward," he said. "I chose to forget what mattered. I chose to leave instead of staying. But now, I'm never leaving again." He stepped forward and hugged them. The triplets hugged him back, tight and wordless, but full of emotion. Moments later, the doors to the operating room opened. The doctor emerged. "The surgery was successful. Her body is responding well. She'll move to recovery tonight." Jonas collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed with joy. Tears flowed down his face as he bowed his head. "Thank God," he whispered. He looked at his children now sleeping quietly in the recovery room beside Marianne's bed. It's not too late, he thought. That night, Jonas made a promise. There would be no more leaving. This was their new beginning. The hospital was silent the next morning when Marianne slowly opened her eyes. A white ceiling, soft pillow, and the scent of antiseptic greeted her senses. Her hand instinctively touched her chest. She felt the pain from surgery, but also the unmistakable sensation that she was still alive. By her bedside sat Jonas, hunched over, clearly having stayed up all night. "Marianne," he said softly, noticing her stir. She turned to him weakly. "What happened?" "You had surgery," Jonas answered. "But you're safe now. Everything went well. You're in New York. I'm here and so are the kids." Her eyes widened. "Our kids?" she asked. "I know the truth now," Jonas said, his eyes filled with tears. "I know they're ours. The triplets, Michael, Mira, and Maya." Marianne didn't speak immediately. The wounds of the past cracked open all over again. She didn't know if she should be happy or hurt. "How did you find out?" she asked at last. "I found your old wallet on the island. It had the photo of you and the children. The moment I saw it, I knew. And since then, I haven't stopped until I found you." Marianne turned her head toward the window. Her eyes found the sky. "All those nights I cried, all the times I wanted to give up. I never thought this day would come," she whispered to herself. "I made a promise," Jonas said. "If I were ever given a chance to make things right, I wouldn't let go. I'm here. I'm not leaving." The triplets entered the room quietly, carrying a tray with porridge and fruit. When they saw that Marianne was awake, they rushed to her side. "Mom!" Maya cried. "You're awake!" Mira and Michael shouted together. "We're so glad you're okay," Michael added, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. Jonas stood behind them silently, watching the moment he had once only dreamed of. Now it was real. After Marianne ate a little, the children left the room to let her rest. Jonas remained by her side. "There's something I need to tell you," he said seriously. Marianne looked at him. "What is it?" "It might be too late, but I want you to know the whole truth. I know you're angry. I know I left you, but I didn't know you were pregnant. If I had—" "Even if you had," Marianne cut in, "you still chose Celeste. You left because of her." Jonas took a deep breath. "Yes, you're right, but there's something else you don't know, about Michael's death." Marianne froze. "What about it?" Jonas pulled out a copy of a report. one he had recently received from a former staff member at the resort. A witness came forward. He saw a man placing a net in the water, exactly where Michael drowned. Marianne's eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "It wasn't an accident," Jonas said. "Someone planned it, and the person who gave the order was Celeste." Marianne trembled. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Number, that can't be true." "She paid someone to put an obstruction in the river," Jonas said, voice tight. "So that you would be blamed, so I would walk away from you, and it worked." Tears streamed down Marianne's cheeks, but they weren't from sorrow. They were from rage and from truth long buried. "She used our child," Marianne whispered. "She destroyed our family." Jonas nodded, barely holding back his own tears. "And that's why I can't let this go. It's not enough to apologize. She has to face justice." Minutes passed in silence before Marianne finally spoke again. "What are you planning to do now?" "I'm going to apologize, not just to you, but to our children, and I'm going to file charges, for Michael, for our family." Outside the room, the triplets stood quietly, having overheard everything. Though young, they understood the weight of what they had just heard. "So, our brother was murdered," Mira whispered. "That woman, she's the one who replaced Mom, right?" Michael asked. "She can't get away with it," Maya added. Inside the room, Jonas held Marianne's hand. "This time I'm not walking away. I won't repeat the mistake of leaving you. I'll fight, for all 5 of us." Marianne looked into his eyes. Her heart still carried pain, but she could see the sincerity in him now. The past couldn't be erased, but the future still held hope. "Where are you?" Celeste's voice cut sharply through the phone as her high heels echoed against the marble floor of her penthouse office. She sounded as if she were walking on glass, her tone restrained but close to exploding. "I'm at the hospital," Jonas answered coldly, staring down the corridor outside Marianne's room. "Hospital? With your broke ex-wife and those kids that might not even be yours?" Jonas didn't respond immediately. That question hit like a slap. "I'm not in the mood for insults, Celeste. Marianne's sick. She needed surgery. Thankfully, she survived." "And why should you care?" Celeste snapped. "It's been years. I'm the one who's been by your side since you left her. I helped you. I made you who you are now. You have your own company, power, reputation, everything." "Not everything," Jonas said calmly. "I don't have peace. I don't have my children by my side. And I definitely don't have a heart in this marriage." There was silence on the line. Celeste breathed deeply, then replied in a low, menacing voice. "Let's fix this. Come back. Forget yesterday. If you keep dragging this out, you'll ruin your name, your company, everything you've worked for." "This isn't a fantasy, Celeste. That's my family." Her voice suddenly grew louder. "Family. You think the world will accept the children of a woman you abandoned? You think you can just throw all this away for some woman from the past?" Jonas didn't answer immediately. He glanced inside the hospital room and saw the triplets asleep on a bench, huddled together. Marianne lay resting peacefully, her face calm, despite the oxygen tube. "Celeste," he said steadily, "let me ask you something. Do you love me, or do you just want to possess me?" She barely whispered. "Jonas, if you love me, why do I have to choose between money and my family?" She was silent for a long time. Then she finally said what he'd expected. "It's me, and everything that comes with me, or the woman you left and those kids that don't even carry your name. Choose, Jonas." For the first time in his life, Jonas stood at a crossroads that had nothing to do with business. His past decisions had always been about profit margins, opportunities, and prestige. But now none of that mattered. Back inside the room, he sat beside Marianne. The triplets watched him quietly. "Michael," he said softly, Mira, Maya, if we don't have a big house, if there's no air conditioning, if we're not rich anymore, will you still come with me? Michael nodded. As long as we're together, Dad, that's all that matters. Mira and Maya both answered in unison. Yeah, we're okay with that. Jonas closed his eyes, letting their words settle in. For the first time in many years, he felt whole again. But outside the hospital, a storm was brewing. Choosing Marianne would close every door to wealth and power that Celeste had once opened. The next day, Jonas returned to the gated house he once shared with Celeste in a wealthy suburb. He walked in quietly. Celeste was in the living room, dressed in black, sipping wine. "You came back," she said, without looking up. "I came to collect my things. After this, I'm not coming home again." Celeste stood, blocking the staircase. "You're really sure?" she asked. "I am." She stepped closer, voice lowering. "I control all your accounts. Half the properties are under my name." "Keep them," Jonas said. "I don't need any of it." "If that's your choice," she said coldly as she walked away. "You'll regret this, Jonas. You don't know who you're up against." As Jonas stepped out of the house, he took a deep breath. For the first time, he wasn't a CEO. He wasn't a manager answering to shareholders. He was just a father and a husband, willing to start from nothing for everything that truly mattered. That night, he woke in a modest room. No air conditioning, no expensive linens, no marble floors. Just an old fan, a foldable bed, and Michael Jr. sleeping peacefully beside him, holding his arm. It wasn't comfort he was used to, but it was the peace he'd been searching for. Jonas remembered what Celeste had said before he walked out of the mansion. "You'll regret this. You have no idea who you're going up against." He had known the consequences from the start, and now they were beginning to unfold. When he opened his phone the next morning, he was greeted by a flood of emails. "Account access denied. You have been removed as board member company car retrieval notice legal claim. Evangelista Holdings." He wasn't surprised. Still holding the old wallet, he stared at the photo of Marianne and the triplets. Despite everything being stripped away, he smiled. He was no longer a CEO, but he was finally a father, and to him, that meant more than any title. In the kitchen, Marianne served porridge. Jonas sat nearby, watching as the kids laughed. "When I was in college," he told them, "I had no lunch money. I walked to class every day." "Then how did you become successful?" Mira asked, her mouth full of bread. "Hard work and some luck. But now, even if I've lost everything, I'm going to earn it all back. Not just for me, but for all of you." Michael grinned. "Even if we're not rich anymore, I'm happy, because now we're together." Marianne wiped away a tear as she looked at them. For so long, she thought life had lost its meaning. But now, being with them again, she was slowly becoming whole. That afternoon, Rudy, Jonas's former accountant, visited the small home. He brought papers and an envelope. "Mr. Jonas, I wanted to let you know. A lot of your old team still supports you. Not everyone sided with Celeste. Many have resigned. Some transferred to the newly registered company, Evangelista Real Build." Jonas looked up. "What's that?" "It's a new company registered under your name. We, your former staff, want to help you start again, even if it's small." Jonas teared up, not because of business, but because of the trust he thought he'd lost. Days passed. Life became simpler. Jonas began helping in a local community project on the island, building cottages for fishermen. Marianne, though still recovering, was learning to smile again. The triplets enrolled in public school. But even amid this peace, challenges returned. One morning, while Jonas was walking home from the project site, a luxury car blocked his path. Celeste stepped out, dressed in black, wearing designer sunglasses. completely out of place in the humble village. "How's life in poverty, Jonas?" she said, with a mocking smile. "You don't need to be here," Jonas answered coolly. "It's over." "It's not over," Celeste replied, pulling out an envelope. "This is a legal notice. All of your assets under Evangelista Holdings are now under review. Every industry connection you had, gone. I've severed them all. And one more thing." She stared straight into his eyes. "Don't expect to rise again. I've got enough influence to cut your water supply if I want." Jonas didn't flinch, his voice calm but full of fire. "Better to lose everything than keep living a lie. You may hold gold, Celeste, but I have what you never will, a family that loves me." Celeste narrowed her eyes. "One day, Jonas, you'll realize you should have chosen me." Later that day, Jonas arrived home. The kids ran to him. "Dad, I drew us a house," Michael said, holding up a crayon drawing. A small home with 5 figures out front, Jonas, Marianne, and the triplets. Jonas smiled and kissed his son's forehead. "You don't need a mansion to call it home." That evening, as Jonas massaged Marianne's shoulders while she quietly sipped coffee on the porch, he spoke softly. "I know I haven't proven myself yet, but thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to make things right." Marianne looked at him. "We've all made mistakes. What matters now is how we make them right." In that moment, the choice was clear. Jonas would no longer chase wealth. He would choose family. And in that modest little home, filled with silence and laughter, a lost heart finally found its way back. The morning on the island was bright and peaceful. In the small wooden hut now home to Jonas, Marianne, and the triplets, laughter echoed as they all shared a simple meal of porridge that Jonas himself had prepared. The children were happy, no gadgets, no riches, but filled with love. But across the city, a different kind of morning was unfolding. In Celeste's penthouse, everything was still. Her laptop sat open, legal documents neatly arranged on the table. Her face showed no emotion as she reviewed the emails she was sending out. Notice of bank account termination under Jonas Evangelista blacklist request to investors and industry partners. Order to revoke building permits under Jonas Evangelista's name. Reclaim all company cars and properties. She stood up, faced the mirror, and whispered coldly, "You started this, Jonas. I'll be the one to finish it." Though Jonas had not yet felt the full wave of her vengeance, the pressure was already mounting. At the local community center where Jonas volunteered, Rudy handed him a sealed envelope. "Sir, this just arrived," Rudy said, clearly nervous. Jonas opened it and read, "You are hereby removed as a shareholder and partner of Evangelista Holdings. Your access to all financial accounts is now suspended. Legal action will be taken should you claim any affiliation with the Evangelista Group." Rudy added, "You've also been removed from the contractors list. Even our suppliers have been warned not to do business with us. Celeste's legal team made sure of that." "What about the eco-village project we just started?" Jonas asked, trying to stay calm. "Investors pulled out. It's out of funds. It may shut down." Jonas leaned back, breathing heavily, not because of the business loss, but because his dream of rebuilding something meaningful had been stripped away again. When he returned home, the triplets greeted him with hugs. "Dad, I made a drawing," Michael said, showing a sketch of a house with 5 people, holding hands and 3 suns in the sky, like 3 children watching over their parents. Jonas smiled, even as his chest ached. "No matter what's taken from me, this is one thing no one can take, my family." Inside the house, Jonas spoke to Marianne. He shared everything, how Celeste was trying to erase his name, bury his reputation, make sure he had no future. Marianne took his hand and said, "You don't need to fight for your name." What matters is standing up again, for your family. Jonas nodded. Even if I have to start from scratch, as long as I have you and the kids, I'm not afraid. The next day, Celeste arrived on the island. She wore a black dress, high heels, and dark sunglasses. She looked like an actress from a villain's film. She brought only 2 bodyguards and an envelope labeled, "You'll pay for this mistake." She walked through the narrow village paths, stepping over mud, ignoring the eyes watching her. Jonas saw her coming and stepped outside. Marianne joined him, calm and composed. "What a beautiful life you've chosen, Jonas," Celeste sneered. "A shack, porridge, illegitimate children." Jonas's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. "You left me, for this woman, for kids that aren't even proven yours." "They don't need papers," Jonas said sharply. "They are my blood, and you're the chapter I'm never reopening." Celeste's lips curled into a smirk. "Perfect. That only fuels me more." As she walked away, calls started pouring in. Jonas's remaining contacts were backing out. Even the small supply store they depended on for school materials was told not to do business with them. The noose tightened. That night, while Jonas watched the triplets sleep on a single mat, Marianne came up behind him and wrapped her arms around him. "You don't have to shout to prove yourself, Jonas. You've already shown it every day, by staying, by fighting." He closed his eyes. She kissed his shoulder. "But I won't stay silent while she tries to destroy everything we've built." Under the quiet moonlight, Jonas made a vow, not for power, not for wealth, but for truth. He would rise again, not for his name, but for justice. Jonas had come to the island for peace, but instead he found himself increasingly restless. Every night, as he looked up at the stars from their porch, one question echoed louder than the waves. Why did I blame Marianne so quickly? Why was I so certain she was at fault for Michael's death? He still didn't have an answer, but deep inside, he knew the whole truth hadn't been uncovered yet. One morning, as he sipped coffee outside the local village hall, a man approached him, tanned from the sun, a little unkempt, with a backpack slung over one shoulder. He looked hesitant, nervous. "Are you Jonas Evangelista?" the man asked. "Yes, why?" "I have something to tell you. My name's Leo. I used to work at the resort, the one where your family had that outing years ago, the day your son drowned." Jonas froze. His heartbeat quickened. "What do you have to say?" Leo sat across from him, his hands trembling. "I've wanted to come forward for a long time, but they threatened us. They made us sign waivers, told us to say it was just an accident, but it wasn't." Jonas stared at him. "What do you mean?" "It wasn't an accident," Leo repeated. "A few days before your family arrived, a woman came to the resort. She was beautiful, pale, wore dark sunglasses. She gave specific orders to the maintenance team to clean the area near the river." "That's normal," Jonas said cautiously, though he could feel his chest tightening. "But then," Leo continued, "she ordered us to place a net beneath the water, not for fish, just something to create a little trouble," she said. "I asked who she was. She didn't say, but someone called her Celeste." Jonas felt like the world had collapsed beneath him. Celeste, the woman he had leaned on, the woman he had married after telling himself his love for Marianne, had died. It was like waking from a long nightmare. "I have one more thing," Leo said, handing over an old cell phone. "There's a voice recording. I kept it just in case. I didn't know if I'd ever need to show anyone." Jonas opened the audio file. He heard a voice he knew too well. "I don't want the kid to die, but I need that woman ruined. Once they fight, Jonas is mine." Celeste's voice. She never said the names, but her intention was clear enough to chill Jonas to the bone. He stared at the phone, hands shaking. Celeste had caused Michael's death. Celeste had turned him against Marianne. Celeste had shattered their family. This wasn't a lie. This wasn't gossip. This was murder. Jonas returned to the house in a daze. Marianne was helping the kids get ready for school. Miko was folding his notebook with a smile. Jonas couldn't speak right away. The rage in his chest was boiling over. Marianne saw the look on his face and walked over. "What's wrong?" "I found something out," he said. "About that day, the day Michael died." Marianne's face fell. Her hands went cold. "It wasn't an accident," Jonas whispered. "Someone ordered a net to be placed underwater. It was Celeste. She planned it." Marianne's eyes widened. What did you say?" "I have a recording," Jonas said, handing her the phone. They listened together. As Celeste's voice played, Marianne began to cry, but not out of sadness. These were tears of fury, of finally hearing aloud what her heart had always suspected. "You blamed me," she said, her voice trembling. "You left me. You buried me while I was still alive. You hated me when I needed you most." Jonas knelt before her, his own tears falling. "I can never undo what I did, but please let me make it right. Let me fight for justice, for Michael, for you, for our children." Marianne sat silently for a moment. Then she wiped her tears and looked him in the eye. "If you're going to fight, Jonas, then I won't stop you this time." The next day, Jonas went to the city prosecutor's office. He carried the evidence, the testimony, the recording, and a resolve that couldn't be shaken. He filed charges: frustrated murder resulting in homicide by negligence, against Celeste Whitmore Evangelista. The media exploded. For the first time, the woman once praised as a corporate queen was now being exposed as the woman behind the net of death. The headlines came fast. Billionaire's daughter, charged in child's death. Father seeks justice for son, lost in accident, now called murder. Every news outlet, blog, and social platform shared the story. Celeste's image shifted overnight, from power player to villain. But beyond the noise, a greater battle loomed, in court. "Are you ready?" Marianne asked, as Jonas adjusted the collar of his plain navy suit. They stood outside the makeshift legal aid center near the village hall, where volunteer attorneys had been helping him prepare the case. "I've waited a long time for this day," Jonas answered, "not to destroy anyone, but to give a voice to the child who can't speak anymore." In his pocket was a small photograph of Michael, a family picture taken before everything fell apart, a reminder of what was lost and why he couldn't turn back now. The day of the preliminary hearing arrived. Inside the courtroom, Jonas sat beside Marianne and the triplets. They all wore white, symbolizing hope. Across the room, Celeste appeared in a tailored black suit and large sunglasses, flanked by 3 lawyers. Her face was unreadable, unmoved. The prosecutor stood and began reading out the evidence: the voice recording of Celeste, the testimony of Leo, the old resort worker, the receipt showing a cash payout, and records matching the date of the incident. "This was not mere negligence," the prosecutor declared. "This was a calculated plan to destroy a family." Jonas took the stand. The courtroom fell silent as he began to speak. "The day my son died, my world ended, and for years I blamed the woman I once loved, believing the lies whispered in my ear. But I've come to learn that the truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides in silence, and in my silence, I became a coward." He paused, tears in his eyes, but continued. "I'm not here for pity. I'm here for my son, Michael, a child who became the target of someone's obsession and ambition, a child who never got to grow up, a child who should still be here." Celeste stood up abruptly. "Your Honor, objection. This is grandstanding." "Overruled," the judge said firmly. Let him finish." Jonas drew a deep breath. "I can't bring my son back, but I can demand justice. For him, for the children who still carry his name, and for the woman I abandoned because I believed a lie. I'm asking this court to let the truth be heard." There was a hush in the room. Many wiped their eyes. Jonas stepped down from the witness stand, his hands trembling, but his heart steady. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed. "Mr. Evangelista, how do you respond to Celeste's claim that the evidence is fabricated? Is it true you remained romantically involved with her, even after marrying her?" "Why now?" Jonas didn't speak. He simply pulled out Michael's photo, held it up to the cameras, and said, "This is why. One child, one life, one son." At home, while Jonas rested on the sofa, Mira sat beside him. "Dad," she said gently, "what does justice mean?" Jonas smiled faintly. "It means that no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard it gets, if someone is hurt, someone must answer for it. And when someone loves truly, they must be willing to fight." "Will you fight for us too?" Mira asked. Jonas pulled her close. "From the beginning, Mira. It's only ever been for all of you." As the days passed and the hearings continued, Celeste's public image began to collapse. One by one, her connections abandoned her. She was removed from her company's board, condemned in the media, and slowly cast out by the very elite circles that once worshipped her. During one press conference, Celeste's mother stood in front of reporters. "As a mother," she said with trembling lips, "it's painful to face the truth, but if my daughter had any part in the death of an innocent child, she must face the law. No one is above justice, not even my own." On the final day of the hearing, the judge addressed the court. "Based on the evidence presented, this court finds sufficient ground to elevate this case to trial. The accused, Ms. Celeste Whitmore Evangelista, is hereby ordered detained in legal custody while awaiting formal charges." Celeste held her head in disbelief. She couldn't speak. Jonas, across the room, didn't gloat. He said nothing, only watched through eyes that had finally glimpsed the light of justice. Outside, the media swarmed again, but this time not for a headline about wealth or scandal. This time, Jonas was no longer just a businessman. He was a father standing for the truth. At home with Marianne and the triplets, a new chapter quietly began. The battle was far from over, and the trial was still ahead, but every step toward justice was a step toward healing. Later that night, Jonas stood under the stars. "Michael," he whispered, "I've restored your name, and more than that, I've rebuilt our family." 1 year after the case began, the tides in Jonas's life had completely shifted. He no longer had a billion-dollar empire. The sports car was gone, the mansion in the suburbs too, but if wealth was measured by love, peace, and presence, then for the first time, Jonas was truly rich. The old headlines that once read, "Billionaire leaves fortune for son," had slowly faded into a quieter story. One about a man who rebuilt his family from the fragments of a broken heart, on the same island where it all began. Jonas stood quietly on the shore, watching his children run barefoot in the sand. Mira, the eldest, loved books and dreamed of becoming a teacher. Maya was shy, but thoughtful and observant. She wanted to be a painter. Jonas smiled. They had never been burdens. They were his strength. "Mum, where's Dad?" Maya asked, sitting in the shade of a tree. "He's coming, sweetheart," Marianne replied with a warm smile. Her face, once worn with worry, now glowed with better health and peace. Jonas had provided everything for her recovery: ongoing treatment, medication, rest. But most of all, what healed her wasn't a prescription. It was love, forgiveness, and being together again. Their new life wasn't grand. It didn't have champagne or chandeliers, but it was filled with mornings of laughter, evenings with warm porridge, and nights under starlight shared in quiet unity. There was no pride in their relationship now, no blame, just acceptance and a deep, enduring love for what remained. One afternoon, the church bell near the beach rang softly. White flowers swirled in the breeze as a few close friends, villagers, and some former colleagues of Jonas arrived for a small ceremony. There were no fancy decorations, no fireworks, but every glance, every smile meant everything. At the altar stood Jonas in a simple linen suit. Before him stood Marianne, wearing a plain white dress, a flower tucked in her hair, her eyes sparkling with joy. "In front of God," Jonas said, "and these 3 children who've seen everything, I take you back. And I promise I will never leave again." Marianne smiled. "We may not have everything, but with you, I've found my strength to be whole again." The triplets cheered, "Kiss now, Dad," and laughter filled the air. With that kiss, the final piece of their long, painful story settled into place. The picture was complete. After the ceremony, they celebrated by the shore. Grilled fish was served, clams in broth, fresh coconut juice instead of wine. There were no expensive gifts, only hugs, laughter, and the innocent joy of a childhood rediscovered. Later that evening, Mira sat beside Jonas. "Dad," she asked, "why don't we just go back to the city?" "It's easier there, right?" Jonas stroked her hair gently. "Because this is where I found what really matters, sweetheart. This is where I found all of you. And now I know, wealth isn't how big your house is or how many zeros you have in the bank. It's how many hands hold yours and how many hearts never let go." Their small family business, an island seafood grill and tour service, paid for their needs. But more than that, it gave them purpose. With Marianne by his side, Jonas used the rest of his savings not to reclaim the past, but to invest in futures. They opened a small foundation for orphan children and struggling families. They named it Miko's Light, and every night Jonas would sit quietly before the small altar in their home, where a candle burned next to a seashell and a framed photo of their son. "Michael," he whispered, "I didn't get to grow up with you. But because of you, I finally opened my eyes, and now I will never leave again." Tears would fall, but so would his smile. Outside, Marianne would wait with the kids, her hand outstretched. "Ready, Dad?" Jude would call out. "Where are we going?" Jonas would ask. "To find clams," Mira would shout. "For dinner," Maya added. Together they would walk toward the sea, no longer chasing wealth, no longer escaping guilt, but moving forward in the light of love they chose to rebuild. The wallet Jonas once found on the shore had not only held a photo, it had carried the beginning of redemption. And the sea, once a witness to loss, now bore witness to their rising. 2 years had passed. The village by the coast had grown. A small school now stood beside the church, and a new clinic had opened down the road, funded quietly by Jonas under the name MJ Foundation, after Michael Jr. The townspeople often whispered stories about the tall man who once wore suits and carried power, but now chose to walk barefoot and serve grilled fish with his family by the shore. To them, he wasn't just a man who had come home. He was proof that no one is beyond redemption. That morning, Jonas stood under the same tree where he first saw his children selling clams. The wind was soft, the sky pale gold. Behind him, Marianne was preparing breakfast while the triplets packed their school bags. "Dad!" Michael Jr. called out, waving his notebook in the air. "We're presenting our family tree today. Look!" Jonas took the paper, smiling. A hand-drawn tree, colored green and brown, showed the 5 of them. At the very top, floating like a star, was Michael, the son they lost, but never forgot. "Is this your big brother?" Jonas asked softly. Michael Jr. nodded. He's part of us, right? Always, Jonas answered, his voice gentle. Always. Mira came over next, holding a frame. Mum said to give you this. Jonas opened the wrapping. It was the same photo from the old wallet, now cleaned and newly framed. Marianne and the triplets, seated on that tattered mat from years ago, their smiles tired but real. Below it she had written in elegant cursive, "From ruins we rise, and from love we remain." Jonas closed his eyes for a moment, letting the emotion wash over him. Later that afternoon, as he grilled fish with Michael by his side, a couple from the city passed by. They stopped to read the chalkboard menu and smiled. "You're Jonas, right?" the man asked. "From Evangelista Holdings?" Jonas smiled, wiped his hands, and nodded. "That was a lifetime ago. We were wondering if you'd consider building a small resort just beyond the reef. We've heard good things about your work, and you're the only one we trust to make it feel real." Jonas didn't answer right away. He looked back at the house, where Marianne and the girls were waving, and then at the boy beside him, now serving coconut juice to tourists. He smiled. "I'll think about it," he said, "but right now, I've already built what matters most." That evening, as twilight settled in, Jonas walked down to the shore alone. He carried a candle in one hand, a single flower in the other. He placed both in the water. "To the son I never got to raise," he whispered, "to the life I nearly lost, and to the family I was given a second chance to love." The tide pulled the candle gently away, and under the glow of stars, the man once buried in pride and silence now stood free, caged no longer by guilt or ambition, but wrapped in the softest, most unbreakable embrace of all, love. This is me again, Mr. Hope. If you enjoyed the story, drop a comment. I'll see you soon.